Hey everybody, it's Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit, and this is one of those Heroclix Groots I got from my 100 Heroclix for 25 bucks off of the Temu, and I actually found out there's a way to get it cheaper, but I have to try it. Apparently, you do not have to pay $25. There's deals and stuff you can get on there. I don't know a lot about it, but as time goes on, I'll figure it out. Alright, I'm getting a soft makeup brush, and I'm going to get something to paint him with. And I'm going to paint him and his base, except for the edge of his base, in dark brown. And I'm just using burnt umber from Walmart to do that. Let me get my brush wet. And I don't care if I get every nook and cranny, and I don't care how good my coverage is. I just want to make sure I get most of him. Anything that lays under here as variation will be okay. But I will say on this step, in these deeper spots, since the dry brush isn't probably going to catch a lot of them, you want to try to make sure the brown does, dark brown does, or you're going to have a really dark black kind of area there. You want something with soft bristles that can get in there. Now this is a pretty rubbery mini, so what I'm making out of my Groot is a wood weird. So weirds are like elementals that, well, I don't know the real, what I use them as is this. I use them as elementals who arise to protect nature or are angry because of something that has happened and have been awakened. I call them weirds. So, I don't know what the real definition is or where that even came from or why I call it that, but I do think it was a real thing at some point in some role-playing game that I played or in some book that I read. At one point in time, there was a weird somewhere. Something was weird, and I embraced it because I like weird. There's also woads, which are like little forest guardians, but I consider these to be like wrathful, hateful things, and they don't necessarily target who's guilty. They just want to beat ass. Okay, so I think we got him mostly brown. I'm going to throw that in the water, rinse that off. We'll hit him with hot air, and we'll go to do some dry brushing. Hot air gun. I took it off camera so it's not right in your ear. He's so thin and rubbery, he's having issues. We'll let him cool down a little bit and then we'll start dry brushing. We get a medium brown paint here. I'm just going to get a little bit there. He's not quite cooled down, so we're just playing with fate at this point. And already he's looking pretty decent. You could really leave him like that, I'm sure, if you wanted. Oops, that's not what I wanted either. Okay. I'm going to lighten him up a little bit. And I think that's probably going to be way too wet. I'm going to get a little bit of gray. I'm going to use a lighter tone gray. Just to get a dab of that. I'm going to mix it in with that. I'm not hitting them everywhere, just in some spots. I'm pretty happy with the way he looks right there. I do feel like he could have a little more contrast in some of those deeper areas, but this brush is too big and I just have to get another brush out to deal with that, so I'm not sweating it. Alright, so I'm done with that brush. I'm going to get dark gray, my favorite color on earth, pavement, and a brush to do my rocks. And to paint my rocks, I'm just going to hit them in pavement real quick. And they don't even have to be perfect. I apologize, I'm making all kind of noises here. I'm burping and all kind of stuff. Alright, so you get your dark gray as your kind of base on those rocks. And I know rocks are a bunch of different colors. And they're not all gray with a light gray dry brush on them. But I use what I call fantasy realism as my aesthetic. And my goal is just to sell the fact that this is in a fantasy world where everything's kind of congruent unless you're in a different biome or terrain type. Okay, so then we want to get a smaller brush and a light gray. I'm going to use that elephant again that I was using earlier. Just get a little bit of that. Boop. And then I'm going to hit those. And you could use a medium gray first if you want a little bit different of a look. I didn't do that, but you could. Okay. And that works good for that fantasy aesthetic. And I'm just going to use some of that and kind of some of the spots on him. Just to places where it looks like he could use a little bit more contrast. His little feet with it so they stick out a little better against the base. Okay. Lighten up his face a little bit. Okay, cool. Now I want to get a small brush and do his eyes. And I want to do his eyes in a red. But you don't have to do what I'm about to do. You can just use red paint. But I'm going to get some white. I'm using a fractional brush here. I'm going to dry those eyes out a little bit. Then I'm going to use a speed paint, a red speed paint. Something like that. All right. Now let's give him some flora to pimp his base a little bit, to pimp his look a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting a brush I would normally use for minis. And I'm going to get some English Ivy Green, which is like a color I love using for any kind of naturey looking stuff. It brings me comfort. It reminds me of Olive Drab from the Army. I'm getting some water. There we go. And I'm just going to, with that damp, really watered down green, I'm just going to kind of it's got to be really watered down so that it dries and there's some difference in tone or it won't work right. Get a little more water. Okay, something like that. Then I'm going to use some of this thicker and wipe a lot of that off. And I'm just going to try to focus on some of the weird sticky uppy parts on the ground. Just to create a little bit of variation down here, because I'm going to be using some flock and some other stuff. But I want it to look like his base and him go together. Like he really isn't just walking around somewhere else. This is where he stood up at. And this is where he was, this is the area which he kind of leaves a trail where he walks that resembles his own essence. I am Groot. Alright. Let's do some black around the base there to finish that off before we start adding any extra stuff. So I'm getting some black paint. I'm using a damp brush. And let's find that barrier where the fantasy world ends and the real world starts and change that. Let's make it a noticeable barrier. Get a little bit more water. My brush is wet and I don't want to use my mouth on with that much paint on my brush. So what I use as my guideline for where the black is, where the world starts and fantasy ends, is since I use baking soda and make this real fine grit dirt on my bases, I use anywhere where that ends as my, where the base starts getting smooth and flat and nice. That's where I make my line of reality. That's just a personal preference. You can do what you want. You might want to just make yours not have a barrier like that. I just like it. It reminds me of like more traditional paint jobs and of the pre-paints, and just it's just got an aesthetic that I care for personally. I've been doing this for like this way for so long now that it's just become kind of like, I didn't do it on the Wild West campaign, and when I look at those miniatures on the shelf, I don't like them. Okay, let's clean that brush. Ba-da-da-da-da. We're going to add to this, and I have a new product here with me today. I bought some grass tufts. I used to make them with hot glue and a stuffed animal, but I haven't had the right stuffed animal since my kids are older. in quite a while. I used to get a lot of choices come running through here, but that's gone. Those days have ended. The boys are just too damn big now. Okay, so let's get a little bit of white glue, or sorry, clear glue. And a toothpick, and pick out some spots where we want flock to sit. I'm just going to use that mossy looking flock I always use, nothing too spectacular. Okay. Now we have a nice looking little base. Now we're going to do a plot twist today. We're going to bring some of that up here. And I usually don't do this on real small minis. I usually do this on bigger stuff. We're going to find some spots where it might be cool to have a little bit of this on the actual model. Okay. Come on the back side here and find some places where we can get a little bit on there. Oh, I used way too much, damn it. That's not what I wanted. Way too much. I just wanted some. That's super thick. Let me get something to clean that out. Get a brush and just kind of wipe some of that out of there. Okay. All right. Now we want maybe some vines on them. Let me see what I got. I have some of this really bad Spanish moss here that could make some decent vines. Seems a bit much, doesn't it? And I would like to kind of get some of this as part of the base too. If possible. But I don't want it to look terrible. I want it to look like organic and decent. So if I can kind of get that down there in some way that works. Yeah, like when he ripped him out of the ground, he picked up some vines and stuff, you know what I mean? So, instead of using a toothpick for that, I'm getting a brush. Now that dries shiny, but don't forget that clear coat will get rid of that shine. Alright, so I have these little tufts, and I didn't really leave a good spot for one, nor do I know if they're self-adhesive or not. But I think I paid like $2.66 or $2.33 or something for these. And I got 2 packs like this for that. So they are self-adhesive, I will say that, but I don't trust it. So I'm going to dip it in my glue. I'm pretty happy with that. Anyways, I'm going to have to let that dry naturally because of the glue. And then I'm going to clear coat it. And then I'll take a picture of it. And then I'll send it. Or upload it. Let's get a good look at him again. So that's my Groot turned into a Woodwode. He's got sinister red eyes. Or Woodweird, not Woodwode. He's got sinister red eyes. And he looks like he's just kind of stepping out of the landscape and taking his rightful place as destroyer of anybody who's in his shit. How's this guy fight? Well, I don't know, man. He punches. He kicks. He chokes. He bites people's heads off. He rips people in half. He's a marauder. He takes reduced damage from bludgeoning and piercing. He takes normal damage from slashing, maybe even increased damage from slashing, but only if it's an axe. Maybe if you use an axe, he takes 1.5 times or double damage. He has an ability to go dormant and pretend he's dead and heal rapidly. And each round he does, as long as he's in a natural environment, like where he's supposed to be from, or at least somewhere with similar characteristics, he can regen naturally each round some health. Fire does double damage to him. Acid hurts him. He's immune to electricity. He's immune to water. He's immune to air. He's immune to stone. The Woodweird. This one is actually not just a regular Woodweird. This one is actually one who's been awake for a while, and he's very angry, and he's trying to kill anyone who is possibly related to someone who could have killed a forest. So if you're from a town and you're a hapless adventurer and somebody chopped down a tree that he was in love with, well, you're good enough. He's coming for you. Anyways, I've rambled on long enough. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon and all that happy crappy. Leave comments and such, and I'll see you next time.